Look at your hand. Hold it up to the light. Not the sterile, electric light of a bulb, but the other light. The ancient light. The light that has crossed 150 million kilometers of absolute nothing to find you. Feel its warmth. What do you feel? You think you feel the gentle heat of a summer afternoon, the pleasant glow of a familiar star. You think you are basking in the steady, reliable presence of our sun. You are mistaken. What you feel is a ghost, a phantom, the echo of an event of such unimaginable violence that it defies every intuition you have about the world. The warmth on your skin is the final, faded whisper of a cataclysm that has been raging uninterrupted for 4.5 billion years. It is not fire. Fire is a comforting terrestrial thing. It is chemistry. It is the gentle breaking and rearranging of atomic bonds. It is what becoming ash, oxygen becoming memory. What is happening in the heart of that star is not chemistry. It is alchemy. It is transmutation. It is the universe tearing its own fabric apart and stitching it back together into something new. It is a process that has a name, a clean, clinical, scientific name. Fusion. But a name is not the thing itself. A label is a mask that hides the true face of the abyss. We're going on a journey, not across the void of space, but into the heart of a paradox. We're going to look into the furnace and see what is really there. We're going to deconstruct the lie your senses tell you every single day. The lie of the tranquil sun. For beneath that placid, yellow face is a monster. A beautiful, life-giving monster. And you are its child. The first and most fundamental illusion is that of substance. You look up at the sun, and you see a thing. A sphere, an object, solid and distinct, hanging in the velvet black of space. It seems as real and concrete as the ground beneath your feet. But what is the ground beneath your feet? Atoms. And what are atoms? Mostly, they're nothing at all. A cloud of agitated probability surrounding an impossibly dense nucleus. A whisper of potential held in a vast cathedral of emptiness. The solidity you feel is a trick of force. A refusal. The electron shells of the atoms in your shoe pushing against the electron shells of the atoms in the floor. A dialogue of repulsion that creates the sensation of solid. The sun is no different, only more honest about its own emptiness. It is not a solid sphere. It is not a liquid ocean of fire. It is not even truly a gas, as we understand it. It is something else, a fourth state of matter. Plasma. To make a plasma, you must take a gas and heat it to such an extreme temperature that the very identity of the atoms begins to fray. The electrons, once loyal companions to their nuclei, are torn away by the sheer, energetic chaos. They are set free to wander, a sea of negative charge, leaving behind the naked, positively charged nuclei. The sun is a churning, incandescent ocean of these separated particles. A storm of liberated electrons and bare protons, mingling in a state of perpetual, violent confusion. There is no surface. Not really. When you look at the sun, what you perceive as an edge, a crisp circumference, is an optical illusion. You're simply looking into the plasma storm until it becomes so dense that it is opaque. It is like looking into a fog bank. There is no wall there. You're just seeing the point at which the light can no longer freely escape. The photosphere, the sphere of light, that is the name we give to this boundary of perception. But it is a boundary in our vision, not in the sun's reality. So the first lie is the lie of form. The sun is not a thing. It is a state of being, a roiling, formless tempest of liberated matter, 100 times the diameter of the earth, held together only by its own immense gravity. It is a cage of gravity, and inside a nuclear hurricane has been blowing for an eternity. The second illusion is that of combustion, the lie of fire. Our ancestors were not wrong to worship it as a god of fire. It is a natural, intuitive leap. It is bright. It is hot. It gives off light and heat. These are the hallmarks of fire. For most of human history, this was not a question. It was a given. The sun burned. The question was, what was its fuel? What cosmic log did the universe throw onto this celestial bonfire? In the 19th century, a time of engines and industry, of coal and steam, science tried to answer this. The great minds of the age, men like Lord Kelvin, applied the physics they knew, the physics of thermodynamics and gravity. Perhaps they suggested the sun was made of coal. A simple calculation showed that a sun-sized lump of coal, burning with perfect efficiency, would exhaust itself in a few thousand years. This was not enough time. The geologists and the biologists, like Darwin, were telling a new story, a story of deep time, a story of fossils and strata, of slow, creeping evolution that required millions, hundreds of millions of years. The coal theory was dead. So they proposed another engine. Gravity. The idea was elegant. The sun, they imagined, was slowly contracting under its own colossal weight. This gravitational collapse, the slow inward fall of all that matter, would generate immense heat and pressure, causing it to glow. It was a beautiful mechanical model, a celestial clockwork engine. Kelvin calculated the age of the sun based on this model. He arrived at a figure of 20 to 40 million years. It was a vast span of time, far greater than the age of burning coal. But it was still not enough. The rocks and the finches cried out for more time. The silent testimony of the earth demanded a sun that was orders of magnitude older. Section. There was a fundamental conflict. The laws of physics, as understood, could not account for the age of the world, as observed. The sun presented a paradox. It should have already died. Our existence was, according to the best science of the day, impossible. The sun refused to conform to our understanding. It insisted that there was a piece missing from our puzzle, a force, an engine, more powerful and more enduring than anything we had yet imagined. The answer was not in the chemistry of fire, nor in the mechanics of gravity. It was hiding somewhere else. It was hiding inside the atom itself. It was sleeping in the heart of matter, waiting for a visionary to call it by name. The story of that awakening is the story of a shift in human consciousness. It is the story of our transition from a classical, mechanical universe to a strange, uncertain, quantum one. The year is 1920. The world is reeling from a great war, and physics is in a state of beautiful, creative chaos. A new idea has been born, courtesy of a clerk in a Swiss patent office. The idea that mass and energy are not separate things, that they are two faces of the same coin. E equals mc squared. It is the most famous equation in history. But in 1920, it was still a piece of theoretical arcana, a whisper of immense possibility. It suggested that within even the smallest speck of matter, there was a locked treasure chest of energy, an amount of energy so vast it was nonsensical. Enter a man named Arthur Eddington. Eddington was not just a scientist. He was a poet of the cosmos, an astronomer who looked at the stars not as distant points of light, but as laboratories where the fundamental laws of nature were being written. He was a Quaker, a pacifist, a man who saw a deep, underlying harmony in the universe. He looked at the paradox of the sun's age, and he looked at Einstein's strange new equation, and he made a leap of intuition that would change everything. He stood before the scientific assemblies of his time, and he proposed something that sounded like heresy. He proposed that the sun was not burning. It was not collapsing. It was annihilating its own substance. He suggested that somewhere in the crushing pressures and searing heat of the solar core, matter itself was being unmade, and in that unmaking, it was releasing the energy Einstein had predicted. If, indeed, the subatomic energy in the stars is being freely used to maintain their great furnaces, he said, it seems to bring a little nearer to fulfillment our dream of controlling this latent power for the well-being of the human race, or for its suicide. He was a prophet. He saw both the light and the shadow of the atomic age, decades before it would arrive. But his idea was just that, an idea, a grand, poetic vision. He did not know the mechanism. He did not know the precise recipe for this stellar alchemy. He had identified the kitchen, the stellar core, and the cookbook, E equals mc squared, but the pages were blank. Who would write down the recipe? Who would become the cartographer of this unseen, infernal process? The task fell to a new generation of physicists, the quantum generation, the children of Bohr and Heisenberg, who were learning to speak the strange new language of probability waves and uncertainty. The problem was immense. The core of the sun is a place of pure chaos. A billion particles screaming in a plasma storm at 15 million degrees Celsius. How could you find a pattern in that madness? How could you map a hurricane? The hero of this chapter of the story is a man named Hans Bethe. Bethe was a different kind of mind from Eddington. Where Eddington was the poet, the visionary, Bethe was the master craftsman, the meticulous, indefatigable architect. He fled Nazi Germany and found a home in the United States, a place where he could dedicate his life to the pure, abstract beauty of theoretical physics. In 1938, he attended a conference on theoretical physics in Washington, D.C. The central topic of discussion was this enduring mystery. How do stars shine? Bethe, it is said, decided to tackle the problem on his train ride back to his university. He was armed with all the new knowledge of the atomic nucleus, the properties of protons and neutrons, the behavior of the fundamental forces. He began to work. He began to sketch out the possibilities. He imagined the particles in that solar core not as a chaotic mob, but as dancers in a very specific, very rule-bound ballet. The primary dancers were the most common things in the universe. Protons. A proton is the nucleus of a hydrogen atom, the simplest element. The sun is made almost entirely of hydrogen. So the fuel for the fire, the raw material for the alchemy, had to be protons. The challenge was immense. Protons are positively charged, and as every student of physics knows, like charges repel. This force of repulsion, the electromagnetic force, is powerful. As you push two protons together, the force trying to shove them apart grows stronger and stronger. It creates a barrier, a wall of repulsion. To slam two protons together with enough force to overcome that barrier would require temperatures and pressures far greater than even those in the heart of the sun. It was another paradox. The sun was not hot enough to sustain the very reaction that was supposed to be making it hot. Classical physics, once again, said it was impossible. But Hans Bethe was a quantum physicist, and in the quantum world, the impossible happens all the time. He knew about a phenomenon that has no counterpart in our everyday world, a piece of pure magic written into the laws of the universe. It is called quantum tunneling. Imagine throwing a tennis ball against a brick wall. It will bounce back. It will always bounce back. It does not have enough energy to pass through the wall. No matter how many times you throw it, the outcome is the same. The wall is a perfect barrier. This is our world, the world of classical certainty. Now, imagine a proton hurtling towards the electromagnetic barrier of another proton. That barrier is a wall of energy. The proton, like the tennis ball, does not have enough energy to go over the wall. But the proton is not a tennis ball. In the quantum realm, a particle is not a solid little thing. It is a cloud of probability, a smear of potential. Its position is not a certainty, it is a likelihood. There is a small, but very real, probability that the proton might simply find itself on the other side of the wall. It doesn't break through the barrier. It doesn't smash it down. It appears on the far side, as if the barrier were never there. It tunnels. It is a ghost passing through a solid wall. This is the secret. This is the miracle that ignites the stars. Quantum tunneling allows two protons, which should by all rights fly apart, to get close enough for a new force to take over. A much stronger, much stranger force. The strong nuclear force. This force is the titan of the universe, but it has an incredibly short reach. It only operates over the scale of an atomic nucleus. It is a giant with tiny arms. But if you can get two particles close enough for it to grab them, it is 100 times stronger than the electromagnetic force that is trying to push them apart. Gravity squeezes. Electromagnetism repels. Quantum tunneling cheats. And the strong force binds. This is the delicate, violent dance that Beta began to choreograph. He worked for weeks, covering chalkboards with equations, testing pathways, calculating reaction rates. He found that the protons in the sun did not just slam together. They engaged in a multi-step process, a chain reaction. He called it the proton-proton chain. And with that, the recipe was written. The mechanism for stellar alchemy was laid bare. He had charted the heart of the furnace. Let's descend into that furnace. Let us follow the steps of this strange recipe. Let us not use the cold language of physics, but the language of metaphor, for we are describing something that no human eye will ever see. Imagine the core of the sun, a space of unimaginable pressure and heat. And in this space, a sea of protons. Think of them as individuals, each one a point of positive identity, fiercely guarding its own space. They dart and swerve, repelled by their neighbors, kept in this chaotic dance by the relentless crush of gravity from all sides. For millions of years, a single proton can exist in this state, a lonely dancer in a crowded room. But every so often, two of them are set on a collision course. As they approach, the wall of repulsion rises between them. They slow down, fighting against a force that wants to tear them apart. They should, by all rights, recoil and fly away from each other. But now the ghost arrives. The uncertainty, the quantum tunnel. For a fleeting, impossible moment, one proton finds itself on the other side of the barrier, practically touching its twin. And in that instant, the giant awakens. The strong nuclear force reaches out and seizes them. The fusion is not yet complete. The act of binding two protons together is fundamentally unstable. The universe demands a certain balance. In this moment of forced union, reality itself must adjust. One of the protons transforms. It is a moment of pure alchemy. A positive charge must be shed. The proton, in an instant, becomes a neutron. In this act of transformation, it releases two other particles. One is a positron. It is the antimatter twin of an electron, a particle of pure positive charge. It is born into a sea of its mortal enemies, the free electrons of the plasma. The moment it meets an electron, they annihilate each other in a flash of pure energy, a tiny puff of gamma rays, the first breath of sunlight. The other particle is different. It is stranger. It is a neutrino. The neutrino is the true ghost in this machine. It has almost no mass. It has no charge. It does not feel the electromagnetic force. It barely feels the strong nuclear force. It is a particle of pure indifference. The plasma of the solar core, so dense and opaque that a photon of light will be trapped inside it for 100,000 years, is, to the neutrino, nothing at all. It is utterly transparent. The neutrino, born in the heart of this fusion event, shoots out of the core at nearly the speed of light. It passes through the remaining 700,000 kilometers of the sun's body as if it were empty space. 8 minutes later, it is here. It is passing through you now. Billions of them, every second, from the sun, passing through the planet, through your bones, through the very atoms of your being, and continuing on their journey into the depths of space. They're the most direct messengers we have from the heart of the star. They are a constant, silent rain of information from the furnace. But the dance in the core is not over. The first step is complete. We no longer have two protons. We have a new, stable partnership. One proton and one neutron, bound together by the strong force. This is a nucleus of deuterium, an isotope of hydrogen. It is also called heavy hydrogen. This deuterium nucleus now continues its journey through the plasma storm. It is a more complex dancer. It carries the memory of that first violent union. Sooner or later, it will encounter another lonely proton. Again, they are set on a collision course. Again, the wall of electromagnetic repulsion rises between them. But this time, the barrier is easier to overcome. The deuterium nucleus has a different charge configuration. They collide, and this time they stick. No quantum tunneling is required. The strong force clasps them together. We now have a particle made of 2 protons and 1 neutron. This is a nucleus of an isotope called helium-3. This union is also an energetic one. It must shed its excess energy to become stable. It does so by releasing another particle of light, another gamma-ray photon, more potent, more energetic, another contribution to the furnace's heat. This is the second step of the chain. Now the stage is set for the grand finale. The core is now populated with these new creations, these helium-3 nuclei. They wander the plasma, each one a product of 2 prior fusions. Eventually, 2 of these helium-3 nuclei will find each other. They are larger now. They carry more charge. The repulsion between them is immense. But the temperatures and pressures are so great that collisions are inevitable. 2 helium-3 nuclei, each containing 2 protons and a neutron, smash into each other. The result is a moment of cosmic reorganization. A new, supremely stable configuration is formed. A particle with 2 protons and 2 neutrons. This is the nucleus of helium-4, the second most abundant element in the universe, the ash of the solar fire. But look at the accounting. 2 helium-3 nuclei came together. That is a total of 4 protons and 2 neutrons. The final product, helium-4, only has 2 protons and 2 neutrons. What happened to the other 2 protons? They are released. They are thrown back out into the plasma storm, free to begin the dance all over again. They are recycled fuel, the phoenix rising from the ashes of its own creation. The proton-proton chain is not just a line. It is a cycle. It is a self-sustaining reaction that both consumes and replenishes its own fuel. And in this final, climactic act of fusion, a tremendous amount of energy is released, not in the form of a single photon, but as raw kinetic energy. The new particles fly apart with incredible speed, slamming into their neighbors, raising the temperature of the entire core, sustaining the very conditions that make the whole process possible. This is the recipe. This is the 3-act play that unfolds trillions of times a second in the heart of our sun. For protons go in, 1 helium-4 nucleus, 2 positrons, 2 neutrinos, and a burst of pure energy come out. And in that transaction, a tiny fraction of the original mass of the protons is lost. It is not truly lost. It is converted. It is transformed into the energy that heats the core, that pushes against gravity, and that eventually, after a very long journey, becomes the light that warms your face. The sun, every second, converts 4 million tons of its own matter into pure light. 4 million tons. Every second. 4.5 billion years. And it has enough fuel to continue for another 5 billion. Hans Bethe had mapped the impossible. He had given us the physics. But the map is not the territory. To truly know this place, we need more than equations. We need evidence. We need to find the fingerprints of this process. We need to see the shadows it casts upon our world. How do we know any of this is true? No probe can survive the journey to the sun's surface, let alone its core. We cannot see inside it. The heart of the furnace is hidden from us behind a veil of incandescent plasma. We know because we have learned to listen to the sun's whispers. We have built tools to detect its ghosts. The first line of evidence is the ghost itself, the neutrino. For decades after Bethe proposed his theory, the neutrino was just a theoretical necessity, a phantom particle required to make the equations balance. No one had ever detected one. They were so indifferent to matter that catching one seemed impossible. But we built the traps. Imagine a giant tank deep underground, shielded from all other forms of cosmic radiation. A tank filled with hundreds of tons of ultra-pure cleaning fluid, or later, heavy water. And surrounding this tank, thousands of hypersensitive light detectors. This is a neutrino observatory. Most of the billions of solar neutrinos that pass through this tank do nothing. They fly through the atoms of the water as if it were a vacuum. But every so often, by a staggering coincidence, one neutrino will strike the nucleus of an atom in the water in just the right way. This collision creates a tiny, faint flash of blue light, a single quantum of evidence. By counting these flashes, we could test the theory. The proton-proton chain predicts a very specific number of neutrinos should be streaming from the sun. We could now, for the first time, count them. And when we did, we found another paradox. There were not enough. Our detectors were only finding about a third of the neutrinos that our models of the sun predicted. It was a crisis. Was our understanding of the sun wrong? Was the proton-proton chain incorrect? Or was something wrong with our understanding of the neutrino itself? This puzzle, the solar neutrino problem, haunted physics for 30 years. The answer, when it came, was even stranger than the problem. It turns out, neutrinos are not static things. They are chameleons. They come in 3 different types or flavors: the electron neutrino, the muon neutrino, and the tau neutrino. The proton-proton chain in the sun only produces electron neutrinos. Our first detectors could only see electron neutrinos. What scientists eventually discovered is that neutrinos can change their flavor as they travel. They oscillate. A neutrino that begins its journey from the sun's core as an electron neutrino can arrive at Earth as a muon or a tau neutrino. It exists in a state of superposition, a quantum blend of all 3 flavors at once, and only chooses a specific identity when it interacts with a particle in our detector. When we built new detectors, like the Sudbury Neutrino Observatory in Canada, that could detect all 3 flavors, the numbers matched perfectly. The sun was producing exactly the right number of neutrinos. Our model of the furnace was correct. The neutrinos, the messengers from the core, had not only confirmed the theory of fusion, they had revealed a new, deep, and bizarre truth about the nature of matter itself. They had forced us to accept a reality where particles have shifting, uncertain identities. But there is another way we listen, a more poetic way. We listen to the sun's song. The sun, this giant sphere of plasma, is not silent. It is ringing. It is vibrating like a colossal bell. The constant, violent convection within it, the roiling and churning of hot plasma rising and cool plasma sinking, creates sound waves. These waves are of incredibly low frequency. Their wavelengths are hundreds of thousands of kilometers long. They travel through the sun's interior, bouncing and reflecting off different layers of density and temperature. They cause the surface of the sun to subtly pulse, to move up and down in complex, overlapping patterns. From Earth, with highly specialized telescopes, we can watch this subtle motion. We can measure the Doppler shift of the light from the sun's surface as it rises and falls. And by analyzing these vibrations, we can do something remarkable. We can reconstruct a picture of the sun's interior. It is the science of helioseismology. It is like tapping on a wall to find the studs. It is like a doctor listening to a patient's heart. We are listening to the music of a star. And this music tells us a story. It tells us the density, the temperature, the composition of the layers all the way down to the core. The findings of helioseismology have confirmed, with stunning precision, the models of the sun that were first built from the theory of nuclear fusion. The song of the sun matches the recipe of Hans Bethe. The shadows on the wall perfectly match the shape of the unseen object. We cannot see the furnace, but we have received its messages carried by the ghostly neutrino, and we have heard its voice carried on the waves of its own seismic song. The evidence is clear. The case is closed. Or is it? Because to accept the reality of this furnace is to accept a world built on paradox. A world that violates every pillar of our classical, common-sense logic. Let's consider the paradox of time. You're standing in the sunlight. A photon, a particle of light, ends its long journey by striking a photoreceptor in your eye, or by warming a cell in your skin. When was that photon born? You might think it was born 8 minutes ago. That is the time it takes light to travel from the surface of the sun to the Earth. But you'd be wrong. Terribly wrong. That photon was not born on the surface of the sun. It was born in the core. It was created in that flash of annihilation when a positron met an electron, or in the energetic union of protons and deuterium. It was born in the heart of the furnace, and it has been on a very, very long journey. The core of the sun is unimaginably dense. A photon of light cannot travel freely. The moment it is created, it is absorbed by a nearby particle. That particle holds the energy for a moment, and then re-emits another photon in a random direction. This new photon travels a few millimeters, maybe a centimeter, before it too is absorbed and re-emitted. And so it goes, a journey of a million tiny steps, a cosmic pinball machine. It is called the random walk. The photon staggers through the dense plasma of the sun's interior, being absorbed and re-emitted, over and over again. Its path is not a straight line, but a chaotic, tortuous scribble. How long does this journey take? Estimates vary, but the most common figure is staggering. It takes a photon, on average, between 100,000 and 200,000 years to travel from the core of the sun to its surface. Think about that. The light that touches your face today was created before the dawn of human civilization. It was born before the last ice age had ended. While Neanderthals still walked the earth, the light that is now reaching your eye began its drunken, 10 millennia-long stagger through the body of the sun. When that light was born, the Sahara was a lush grassland. The Great Pyramids of Egypt were a dream in the distant, unimaginable future. The sunlight you experience is an antique. It is an artifact from a different geological epoch. Now compare that to the journey of the neutrino. Born the very same fusion event at the very same instant as that photon, the neutrino passed through the sun's entire body in 2 seconds. It arrived at Earth 8 minutes later. The neutrino is a bulletin from the present. It tells us what is happening in the sun's core right now. The light is a history lesson, a postcard from the distant past. So what is the sun you're experiencing? Is it the one that the neutrinos describe, the one that exists in this moment? Or is it the one described by the light, the one whose energy is a relic of a time before recorded history? Our very perception of our star is fractured across time. We receive 2 messages from the same event, separated by a gulf of 100,000 years. This changes everything. It means the stability we perceive is an illusion created by this immense time delay. If the fires in the sun's core were to suddenly go out, we would know it almost instantly by the cessation of the neutrino rain. But the light? The light would keep shining. The sun would look exactly the same in our sky for 100,000 years, a ghost star, shining with the light of its own memory. We live in the glow of a history book, not a live event. This temporal paradox deepens the mystery of the observer, a concept born from quantum mechanics that suggests the act of measuring a system changes the system. We do not, of course, change the sun by looking at it, but the message bearers, the neutrinos, force us to confront this strangeness. As the neutrino travels from the sun to the Earth, in what state does it exist? Is it an electron neutrino? A muon? A tau? Quantum mechanics insists that it is not any single one of them. It is all of them at once. It travels as a wave of pure potential, a superposition of all 3 possible flavors. It is a question mark, flying through space at the speed of light. The universe has not decided what it is. It is only when that neutrino interacts with a particle in our detector deep beneath the Earth that its wave of potential collapses. In that instant, and only in that instant, it becomes one definite thing. It becomes an electron neutrino, or a muon neutrino, or a tau neutrino. Section: The act of measurement forces reality to make a choice. So what does that mean? Does it mean the neutrino had no definite identity until we looked at it? Does our act of observation here on Earth reach back across 8 minutes of space-time to define the nature of a particle that was born in the heart of a star? It is a question that cuts to the very heart of the nature of reality. Is the universe a collection of definite things? Or is it a sea of probabilities, waiting for an act of interaction, of measurement, of consciousness to crystallize it into fact? The sun, our great, classical, dependable star, is intimately tied to the deepest and most unsettling mystery of the quantum world. Its light is a history lesson, and its ghosts are a philosophical riddle. It forces us to ask not just what it is, but what it means to be real at all. And finally, there's the most profound violation of classical law. The central miracle, the cheat at the heart of it all, quantum tunneling. Let us not let the familiarity of the term dull its sheer impossibility. Our world is governed by cause and effect, by barriers and limits. To get to the other side of a mountain, you must climb over it. You must expend the energy. You must follow the rules. The proton in the sun's core does not. The Coulomb barrier, the wall of electromagnetic repulsion, is a mountain of energy. The proton does not have the energy to climb it. The physics of our world says it cannot pass. But it does. It appears on the other side. Where does the extra energy come from to make this impossible leap? It is borrowed. It is borrowed from the universe itself, from a fundamental principle of uncertainty. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle states that you cannot know both the precise position and the precise momentum of a particle at the same time. But it has a deeper form. It also states that you cannot know the precise energy of a particle for a precise amount of time. There is a slush fund of reality. For incredibly brief moments, particles can borrow energy from the vacuum, as long as they pay it back quickly. The proton tunnels by taking out a loan of energy from the void. It uses this borrowed energy to exist for a moment on the other side of the barrier, where the strong force can grab it. Once it is grabbed, the energy dynamics change, the loan is repaid, and the new, fused particle is stable. The sun is powered by a constant, trillion-fold act of cosmic larceny. It is powered by breaking the most fundamental rule we know: you cannot get something for nothing. Every second of our existence, every photon of light, every breath we take is underwritten by a loophole in the laws of physics. Our lives are built upon a foundation of something that, in our macroscopic world, would be considered a miracle. To accept the sun is to accept a universe where walls are not solid, where energy can be conjured from nothing, and where the impossible is not only possible, but is the very engine of creation. What does this mean for you? It is tempting to keep this knowledge at a safe, astronomical distance. It is about a star far away. It is about particles too small to see. It does not seem to have anything to do with the solid, tangible reality of your own life. But that is the final and greatest illusion. Look at your hand again. What is it made of? Flesh and bone, blood and sinew. Trace it back. It is made of cells. The cells are made of molecules. Complex, beautiful molecules of proteins and lipids and water. The molecules are made of atoms. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, iron, calcium. Where did these atoms come from? They were not made in our sun. The furnace of our sun, for all its power, is only hot enough to fuse hydrogen into helium. It is a star of the first, most basic step of cosmic alchemy. The heavier elements, the elements of life, the elements that make up your body and your world, were forged in furnaces far more violent. They were created in the hearts of much more massive stars. Stars that lived fast and died young. Stars that, at the end of their lives, had the gravitational pressure to cook helium into carbon, carbon into oxygen, and on, up the periodic table. And when those stars died, they did not fade away. They exploded. They died in supernova explosions, cataclysms of such violence that they could outshine an entire galaxy for a few brief weeks. And in those explosions, they seeded the cosmos with the heavy elements they had spent their lives creating. The carbon in your cells, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, these are the ashes of a dead star. You are stardust. This is a well-known poetic fact, but think about what it truly means in light of what we now know about the furnace. It means the process that animates our sun is the same process that created the building blocks of you. Fusion is the creative principle of the material universe. The same quantum tunneling, the same dance of forces, the same transmutation of matter into energy, just operating at a higher, more intense level, forge the very substance of your being. You are not just a child of this sun. You are a child of all suns. You are a walking, breathing, thinking collection of atoms that learned their form in the heart of a stellar crucible. The universe is not something that is happening out there. You are not separate from it. The border between you and the cosmos is porous. It is an illusion. The same forces, the same particles, the same impossible rules that govern the heart of a star are the rules that hold you together. You are built from the light and the ashes of long-dead fires. You are a piece of the universe that has woken up and is looking back at itself. This forces us to ask a terrifying, liberating question. What does it mean to be real? Is the sun the solid, yellow ball we see, or the raging quantum furnace we deduce? Is reality the filtered, time-delayed, classical approximation our senses give us? Or is it the underlying world of probability waves and quantum cheats? If the fundamental components of your own body were forged in a process that violates common sense, what does that say about the solidity of the world you perceive? We live our lives on a stage. The props seem solid. The lighting seems constant. The play makes a kind of narrative sense. But behind the curtain, the machinery is madness. It is a world of ghosts and probabilities, of time delays and borrowed energy. Reality is not a statement of fact. It is a story the universe tells itself, and our senses are only able to read the simplest, most edited version of that story. To truly understand the sun is to become comfortable with a state of enlightened uncertainty. It is to let go of the need for a simple, mechanical answer and to embrace the awe of a process that is beautiful precisely because it is paradoxical. The sun is not a thing. It is a negotiation, a constant 4 billion-year-old argument between the inward crush of gravity and the outward explosion of light. It is perfectly balanced on a knife's edge between collapse and detonation. Our existence is predicated on that balance. Our lives are lived in the calm center of a cosmic storm. And here, we must take the final, speculative leap, the one that bridges the gap between the physics of the stars and the mystery of ourselves. The mystery of consciousness. What is life? From a purely physical perspective, it is a remarkable phenomenon. It is a system that defies the second law of thermodynamics. It does not tend toward disorder and decay. It builds complexity. It organizes matter into patterns of breathtaking intricacy. It creates order out of chaos. Where does it get the energy to perform this trick? It gets it from the sun. Every plant that turns light into sugar, every animal that eats that plant, every part of the vast, interconnected web of life on this planet is powered by the photons that made that 200,000-year journey from the sun's core. Life is a pattern, a stable resonance, sustained by a constant flow of stellar energy. It is a temporary eddy in the river of cosmic entropy, made possible by the furnace of fusion. So what if consciousness is simply the highest, most complex form of this resonance? What if the electrical signals firing in the neural network of your brain, the very thoughts and feelings that constitute your sense of self, are a pattern of organization so exquisite that the universe, through you, becomes self-aware? Perhaps consciousness is not something separate from the physics of the universe, but an emergent property of it. Perhaps it is a decoherence event on a planetary scale, a way for the sea of quantum potential to collapse into the experience of I am. Your awareness, in this view, is a direct consequence of the sun's fire. The light that fuels the biosphere also fuels the mind. The warmth you feel on your skin and the thought you are having right now are two different expressions of the very same stellar process. You're a way for a star to wonder about itself. The light created in the heart of the sun, born of impossible quantum leaps, travels for millennia, crosses the void of space, and finds its final home in your consciousness. The journey from proton to perception is complete. So we return to where we started, in the light. But now it is different. It is not a simple, comforting warmth. It is a message rich with meaning. It is a connection. When you look at the sun, what do you see? You do not see a burning ball of gas. You see a story, the story of matter becoming light, the story of simplicity becoming complexity, the story of violence becoming life. You see a place where the fundamental laws of reality are bent to the breaking point, and in that breaking, create the conditions for existence. A place where walls are transparent and energy is born from a debt to time. The sun is not a thing in the sky. It is a process that flows through you. The atoms of dead stars in your body resonate with the light of our living one. The quantum weirdness that powers its core is the same weirdness that underpins the stability of the matter you are made of. It is the star that never sleeps. And it never sleeps because its dream is us. Its dream is every leaf, every ocean, every breath, every thought. A dream sustained against the cold, silent vacuum of space by a fire that should not be possible. The next time you feel its light on your skin, pause for a moment. Recognize it for what it is. It is the end of an epic poem that began before humanity existed. It is a physical link between your fleeting, conscious moment and the deep, timeless, violent heart of the cosmos. You're not just living on a planet that orbits a star. You are an extension of that star. You are its most intricate creation. You are sunlight distilled into wonder.